What is also an active situation today, another big story, the U.S. and China. They're talking in London, meeting on a possible trade deal. There's Scott Bussey, the Treasury Secretary, and President Trump reportedly allowing Bussey and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick to include the possibility of lifting export controls as part of the negotiations in exchange for China's rare earth minerals. This with new information showing Chinese exports to the U.S. are down. They were down 35% in May, biggest year-over-year drop since the pandemic days. Let's bring in John Bussey on this for a few minutes, the associate editor at the Wall Street Journal. We had the president last hour. It seemed like he hadn't been briefed yet. He said he was going to be after that event. But what do you think the goal is in London, realistically? Seems like they're focused on this export control issue.
Yeah, I think that, Connell, to a certain extent, it's pretty much anything that they can get right now to show that there's progress in the trade negotiations. I mean, the big issues that are still outstanding, sort of monetary manipulation, currency manipulation, subsidies of their state-owned enterprises that make them, way more competitive than companies around the world. Those are just enormous structural changes that are going to have to be taken care of over months and years of negotiation. So if they're able to show that there's some more market access, frankly, that there's reciprocal market access, the access that Chinese companies get into the United States and that they have in the United States, and the freedom of movement that they have in the U.S., even if to some extent companies were allowed that in China, that would be huge progress. But look, imports were down in the U.S. because companies were terrified of these huge possibly having to pay these huge tariffs. And so they throttled back on imports from China. And remember, before the tariffs were announced, they throttled way up. They filled their warehouses with product from China in anticipation of the tariffs to get out ahead of those costs.
Okay. Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.